face.
Okay.
Did you stop it? No,
Recording
sorry.
is
Well, now you're being
started. Okay.
recorded.
Good.
We're being recorded.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Well, let's call the meeting to start with. So just the roll of call. So Marta Sharoni here, chair.
Tracy Young here.
Kim Quirk.
Joelle and Courtney, and this is the Enfield Energy Committee, May 28th, 24th.
Awesome.
28th, 2024, yes.
And it's 6:10 PM due to difficulty with technical issues.
Yes. Great. So as we're starting the meeting, the first agenda item for us is the organization of the committee. So
How about minutes? Do we have minutes?
now first we have to start with that,
Okay.
according
What
to
is,
Alita,
okay, what is an organization of the committee?
meaning that in this meeting, we have to vote on the chair and vice chair. So
Oh.
essentially their roles. So is officers election as first agenda item, and then we can take it from there. So I'm gonna read you how Alisa instructed us, or at least for me it was new.
Okay.
So someone should nominate someone to serve as chair, followed by a second and a vote. And I assume that we do the same thing for vice chair. And the select board encourages rotation of the chair position among members, but does not require it. So if no one else is interested or willing to serve as chair and you are nominated to continue as chair, that's okay. So that was from an email with Alisa.
Is that it?
So I'll nominate Marta Saroni to continue
I will
As
second
chair.
that.
An discussion.
discussion.
If you're willing to serve,
I'm willing to serve, and honestly, I would welcome some feedback. Like, how has it been?
Great.
Like, so no, so I'd be happy to do it. It's something that has been fulfilling, and sometimes I felt that there's more that I could do, it's like, and so I would be very curious to receive feedback on how this role can be,
Hmm,
I don't know, more fulfilling for the whole team.
yeah.
And
I think my feedback is not really so much for you in the role of chair, which I think is great because you come to the meetings, you run the meetings and they run smoothly. And I think all of that is great. I think we need to get more people so that we can do more things. It feels like,
Yeah.
There's an action item and there are not enough people to raise their hands. So maybe that's something that should just be on the agenda, is how to
Mhm.
get more people. But I think you're doing a great job of running the meetings.
I do too, and I think that it's been particularly challenging to have visitors presentations, and you've done a really fine job of allowing the discussion to continue and yet steering it when it needs to kind of
And
close.
I agree. No, I think you've done a marvelous job of, and especially, as you said, yes, dealing with visitors and presenters. I think you've done quite well with that, in terms of focusing their efforts to stay on target and helping us to get to the end of their presentation, in a good way without it getting too far off track. That's always difficult.
Mhm.
I definitely found it challenging.
That's-
Because we all get excited.
Exactly. Exactly, that can be challenging.
Awesome. So with that, we need a vote then, because I'm happy to serve as chair again.
Okay, so I'll call the vote since I made the nomination.
Okay.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
There's nobody else.
That's us. That's us.
Okay,
Great.
great. Thank
Great.
you. Thank you
So,
for
Thank you.
doing
yeah,
Thank you
Yeah.
for being willing to do it.
excited. And so now we are gonna do the same thing for the role of vice chair.
Did we have a vice chair in the past?
Yes.
Yeah, we did this
Joelle
year.
and-
checking. I thought it was, but I didn't remember that we made a big deal about it.
I do.
Okay. I'd love to nominate Joellen as vice chair for another year if she's willing.
I
Yeah.
second that.
Sure, yes,
Thank you.
yeah, I'll do that,
Yay.
because I tend to do it anyway, so why
Yeah.
not be efficient? Sure, yeah. So, do we have a second on that?
I second it.
Marta
Okay.
seconded it.
Yeah.
I'm taking the notes as best I can here.
We're gonna go to a vote and before we vote, I just wanna make an offer that anything that you would like to voice in your role, what might be needed, what might be helpful.
What I would like is to not be the responsible person for, let me put it a positive way. I would like someone else to take responsibility for communication out to the community. In terms of like the town newsletter and listserv. I do that with the community power stuff, but I would prefer somebody else to do it for the general stuff.
Great, so that there's an offer there.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe with this specific offer, because it does require a little bit of thinking and organizing, maybe it's part of the rest of the agenda of the meeting.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Yes.
so then all in favor of having Joellen as our vice president, say aye.
Ah,
Aye.
don't say it out loud, Joellen.
I was gonna say abstention.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Joellen.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
Sure.
I'm excited for that. Good, so that gets us to having a team
Yeah,
and officially, and so we can go to the minutes, approval of the minutes.
I was just gonna say with regard to your suggestion, it's good timing to try to send a note to Alyssa soliciting a member for the committee if we can find one, putting it in the monthly newsletter.
it was in last month.
Yeah, well,
Keep
we had, putting it in everyone is
I know.
probably good until somebody
I
might
wonder,
come along.
yeah, I mean, that could be also part of the meeting, but I could take the same language that I provided Elisa and put it in the listserv.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Right, I would add more,
Context.
yeah. Because just saying we want people, yeah, it's like, why?
Like why and what are we doing? What are we focusing on?
Correct, and
Yeah.
engage people.
Yeah. Okay, that's.
And a little bravado about this committee having worked with
Right.
community power in the past
And we've got.
and
big
continuing
plans that
to
we
work
wanna
with
do.
community power.
Right, right, and we have plans, we have,
Pointing out a past success is always a good thing.
right, and also the master plan is another opportunity for
Yes.
going forward. You've got to kind of,
Yeah.
Entice.
yes, thank you, I was gonna say tease, but entice is a better word.
Okay, so that, I can take that piece on
Good.
because I initiated it and I can beef it out a bit more. And if I need help, I'll reach out for help, but I can take that one.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so, yeah, anything else?
The minutes,
About, yeah, so like, I mean, sorry,
No, I thought the minutes were quite good.
Yeah.
I did not see anything missing.
I didn't either. Oh, my question is, okay, we're reviewing the minutes. I don't have any comments. I wasn't here. I did watch the recording. But when is there an opportunity for me to ask questions about? But, okay, I don't have any issue with the minutes. My question is, the action items, how are we following up on that? That's really my
I
question.
think that's good. And how about we, if
Yeah.
nobody has issue with the changing of the minutes, why don't we approve them and then take that up?
think
I would recommend.
I was
that.
trying to
It's an
figure
agenda
I
item.
think that's the correct way
Yeah, let's
to
do
do it.
that.
So I move that we accept the minutes as written.
I second it.
What, can you give me the date so I can put it in the minutes here?
March 26th. Draft minutes.
and I abstained because I wasn't here.
Actually, people do that and it's incorrect. A member of the committee is not supposed to abstain. They can,
Always can, right?
they always can, but it is not obligatory that they abstain
Just because
from voting for the minutes. They're allowing the minutes to become a part of the record. And people always say, well, I wasn't here, I can't vote.
Okay, that's fine.
You can,
All
actually.
right, so I'll vote. So
Okay,
we want to accept them as written?
so we're gonna vote, so anyone in favor of accepting the minutes as written?
Aye.
We have done?
Okay, now, following up on the
Yeah,
action.
so we used to, actually, I just realized
Yeah.
that one format of having the agenda, was like,
Yeah.
for example, this agenda for today. One format that I experimented with was to just bring up the to-dos that were coming out of the previous,
So like one of the agenda items near the top is review. the
Review.
to-do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Review the to-dos.
And I,
So maybe this, because I didn't do it for this particular meeting, so it'd be good actually to do that,
right,
to continue to do that.
and I know we want to focus the bulk of time on the discretionary funds, but, so,
So should we review them now? Or,
please. Um.
Yeah.
Okay, so under the first page on the draft minutes, which are now approved, it says Martha will send a note to the chair of the planning board about the possibility of using these lights at Laramie Farm project.
so I can prepare to share that I have not reached out quite yet. And the reason for that is that I felt that I wasn't prepared because there's been so much conversation. There's been 2 zoning meetings. And I wanted to read the minutes and all of that. And there is a delay also in by the time that these materials are made available online. So I actually, if anyone here knows what the status is, because if it's something that is not gonna move to the planning
Oh, yeah, you
commission.
don't have to do the work, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so, or at least I have a little context that doesn't feel that I'm
I
completely.
thought I heard that it is moving forward. Did I hear that or?
I asked the other night whether it had moved past zoning, which it has passed now. And, I was told nothing's been presented at all to planning. So I think having gotten past zoning, it now enters a design phase. Because it's only schematic, if you will. I mean,
Yeah.
there are pictures and.
Right.
In fact, there were all those boards over there you're welcome to look at.
Oh,
But it is still very much schematic.
got it.
So, it may seem marginally premature. Or, I suppose, we could ask Rob Taylor, who would be the first one to be consulted anyway by the developer.
Hmm.
If he could drop a bug in the ear of the developer. Could you think about?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, even in their design phase, they're going to have back and forth conversations. Oh, we're thinking about this, or we need to tweak the building slightly
Right.
this way or that way before we go to planning and that
And
sort
you
of
want to
thing.
get in early.
So to get the idea in early.
Yeah.
I would say through Rob Taylor. Now I can see Rob or drop him a note and I can just mention it to him. So that is something that is in his ear
Mhm.
to mention to the developer.
Good.
And what was the topic, did you say lighting or?
Just
Yeah.
Whether they could consider solar
Through lighting.
parking lot lighting or. Solar building lighting. Just, think about it, guys, type of thing.
So will you do that then?
I will do. I will have a conversation with Rob Taylor. And make sure he is aware of this committee's thought that we'd like them to think about it, consider it if at all possible.
Wouldn't we want, we haven't put a lot of input into the master plan or into zoning for new construction or something like that.
Right.
Would it maybe also be, since we haven't done that, and I don't know what that would look like, I don't know how to say it. The lighting is just one piece of this project and a small one relative to the energy conservation
Yeah.
or weatherization or, like good.
Well, they still have, and it's not the strongest code in the world, but they still have to meet New Hampshire Energy Code,
Yeah, I get that.
but solar lighting is not in New Hampshire Energy Code.
Okay, so that's why we called that one out.
Yeah,
Which dovetails, some reason I'm using that phrase a lot. But I had a lengthy conversation with Liam today, because something that came up at the forum, the Master Plan Community Forum, I know this is all stemmed from this particular item. But that was the question about, the suggestion that was made to me was, would the Energy Committee consider provide like an advisory role to new building construction? My conversation with Liam was that he's already following the state regs and has flexibility with the US Department of Energy as a software product which allows input to kind of make the best recommendation. Let's put it that way. What we did end up having a conversation about was that there is a legislation that's in the House at the moment, or I don't know if it's just in the House, but it's in the New Hampshire legislature about raising the standards for the
Energy.
for energy.
Yeah, for energy and New Hampshire building codes. Yes, I knew
Right.
that was, I know what you mean.
yeah.
And that's-
I don't think it went anywhere in this session. I think
It's still in,
I think they put it in, what's that term? Not
Yeah.
ready to,
Put it over in the corner, that one.
yeah, they kind of tabled it, if you will, but I don't know their political term.
yeah, I forget.
Or something to
It's
consider.
not convenient to expedite or
Yeah.
words to
Yeah,
that effect,
something like that.
something like, which
But-
is tabled.
Table, yeah.
So essentially, that's something that I think we ought to revisit at another point in time, the
I
whole
do think
new
it would be-
projects.
Yeah, I wonder if there isn't a way that we can suggest in a nice, can the Energy Committee make some suggestions to, and it could be really to any new construction. And then maybe we put it in writing, like, for instance, I just wrote something, as a matter of fact, I remembered I might not have sent it to Jim Kelleher about the project right across the street from me.
Oh, right.
Yes, yeah, I haven't even sent it yet. That basically saying, you have an opportunity here, you haven't finished the parking lot to put in conduit for the possibility of EV chargers for your individual residents. And here's some reasons why you might want to consider that. And so, that kind of thing, some notes, about, extra insulation here might save you this much money down the, in the operations of the building, which they may not care if the people are paying for paying for the heating and cooling and whatever. It's hard to make a landlord care about that when he doesn't pay for it. But EV chargers could make the people pay more, might make it more enticing to some people to live there. And so maybe he could charge more, and that would be something he'd be interested in.
So instead of just meeting the code,
Yeah,
we're talking about
there are good
future.
reasons to
Right.
go beyond that.
Right,
And again, to provide conduits for EV charging somewhere. In his case, there's probably an area of the parking lot or whatever that could be EV chargers. And all he has to do is while he's got the parking lot opened up, put in some conduit, and it might be something he would consider if he thought he could make money on that.
Wouldn't even need much conduit, you can bolt it to the side of a building.
He could if that's, if there's parking close enough to the side of the building, like, I don't know, who knows? I haven't seen the pictures.
I've only seen it once, and the only parking is that right side of the building.
Is that enough parking? How many people
I think he's allowed to
have one spot?
one space per unit.
Okay.
I don't think there's a requirement that he has to have 2 spaces per
Right,
unit.
right.
Therefore, he needs basically 6 spaces.
Oh, you're talking about my guy, Jim Kelleher. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was now thinking about Laramie. So
That.
I'm writing this
Yeah.
personal letter to Jim saying,
I
I think
think,
it's a good idea.
you
might
know,
consider it.
Overall, I think it's okay for us to say that if, and who would be best on that? Probably starting with Rob Taylor, who's gonna be the first to hear about
Yeah,
a project, if you
Okay.
will.
okay,
It would be fair to ask Rob to think about when a project lands on his desk and it sounds real,
yep,
to say, this town has an energy committee and would love to be able to, provide any advice they can. And any thoughts that they can. It's not a review per se,
right,
no, it's an advisory,
but there may be some advice that a developer isn't aware of.
exactly,
There may be something that we know of in the pipeline somewhere
Yeah.
that could help the developer. And he would say, well, that's not gonna cost me much. I can do that too,
exactly,
Or
but it's,
something. So I would think not letting it get as far as Liam is concerned, because that's a specific review process,
Yeah.
right.
but starting with Rob, who is our town's development
yeah,
contact. And saying, well, mention that we have a committee if you would. So I can mention that at the same time.
Okay. okay,
So it seems that one part is to kind of reach out to Rob and have him be aware that we are willing to take on that role of advisor. And the other piece is having resources available, like in a simple way to share, to do the advising, right? To kind of populate, maybe it's
Yeah.
a simple slide deck or something, where we have the basic things that we are providing, no?
What was the first thing I was gonna talk to him about?
I have it down here. so I
about
can-
the lighting or
Just the
things
lighting, yes.
Laramie.
Thank you, specifically the lighting,
Yeah, specifically.
and in this case, specifically Laramie Farms project.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Actually, in both those cases, because I just sent a letter to Jim Keller. He's done, like he's done with all his design and everything else, and I'm suggesting before you put the parking lot in, consider putting in some conduits.
And I did find out from Liam that, like building permits for new units are probably like 15 to 20 per year.
Okay, that's
So-
how much we do. That's
Yeah,
pretty good.
that's,
Yeah, so it wouldn't
that
be
was a
too much
conversation.
if we were advising any of those who wanted advice, which probably
Correct.
won't be that many, which is why I like the other idea of having a small bit of information, a
Yeah.
one page that says, here are some things in new
Right.
construction that you might consider that we could, if you want advice, encouraging them.
Yeah.
Well, for example, one interesting thing to point out to, and Jim would certainly already be aware of it, but for example, the developer at Laramie Farms, he might not even know about community power.
Right, for instance.
They might
that's a
not
great
even
one.
be aware
Right.
that this committee was responsible for organizing and getting the town onto it. And did you know that the people who are residents there are only gonna pay community power rates? And also as landlord, and there probably will be a landlord meter or two,
Mhm.
uh,
The common meters.
are also going to be
Yeah.
part of community power.
Yeah.
So as you speak to Liberty Utilities, make sure they understand that,
Yeah.
because they'll be happy to shift it onto Liberty Utilities rates.
Actually, that's the bad news is right now, any new construction would go on Liberty Utilities rates unless.
Unless you say something.
Yep, or somebody.
So so there's a very valid reason
Very valid reason.
to
Give them
get this out to the
energy.
developer and say,
Important stuff.
this is important and it's gonna save you money
you're-
because there are going to be
Oh,
common meters that will remain in a landlord's name.
Okay, so I'm gonna just move this along because this was just still on the minutes. So,
Okay.
Well, but it's also.
All right, so I'm the first item on the next page, if we want to hit that.
For the to-dos.
yeah,
No, for an action item, I can tell you that I had a discussion with Ed as part of our, municipal facilities planning group with regard to both Whitney Hall and with, the public safety building.
mhm,
And budgetarily, in both cases, it's so insanely tight to make sure those projects are going to succeed, that there just is not enough resources to consider putting in solar lighting at the expenses that we have seen, which is the $3,000 to $5,000 per installation.
on the plus side, though, it's my understanding that there were some funds that were available to include insulation.
We did. So one of the reasons why, we're particularly tight on, the public safety building is that we beefed up the insulation package. We, made sure
Good.
that in addition, as a building item, as a structural item, we beefed up the PVC roof. We upgraded that, so it has a 30-year warranted life as opposed to less.
Good.
And also, we increased the insulation package. And that seemed a high priority. So we did that.
Good.
But that unfortunately simply tightened things up to the point where thinking about, is there an extra
Yeah,
amount of money to think about solar lighting? There is not. On the other hand, that doesn't mean that down the line, a head couldn't be replaced with solar lighting. Because yes, the conduits unfortunately will be there but the pole will, and base will also be there. So if down the line, it turned out that, there was a source of funds, you could take down the head and you could put up a solar head and just ignore the cable.
good, thank you. And the other thing I wanted to have a conversation about, but I'm gonna wait till next month, and that was about the DPW solar array, because that can wait.
The only thought I had on that was, it is a whole year away, and whether there's any funding sources, we ought to at some point pin down the potential cost.
Well, what Phil said was at the end of the 5 years, they would have an assessor. They would be an assessment made.
Okay, I didn't know, Charlie had said that it might be in the contract, but he wasn't sure.
I would go with what Phil said.
Okay. That it would be based on an market assessment
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
So, but
Okay.
we could, in terms of understanding, if we wanted to try to do a little financial analysis, so we know what we would have to be raising. Like, I think that would be, we could do that, because generally it's 60% of what the original cost was. So if we know the original cost from probably their contract, we could at least get a ballpark, which would then give us the ability to say, a loan for that amount would pay itself off by the savings in the electricity, or something like that.
And also, I think it's appropriate to put a bug in the town manager's ear in terms of, looking out for potential grant money.
Yeah.
I have no idea in this world whether there is any grant money for purchasing an existing
Good question.
field. There may or may not be, but it is important that he knows that is something that, this committee has its eye out on.
Okay, so my question is this an action item for somebody? Because,
I will speak to Ed about this action item,
okay.
of
great.
just making him aware
Yeah.
that at a point in the future, could be 25. We'd like to know whether there's any
Mhm.
grant resources that
Yeah.
he's aware of.
Right.
for the potential purchase of the solar fields
Great,
on
thank
top
you.
of the storage facility.
And could you also ask if it might be possible to arrange a loan or a bond that's completely paid for by the savings in the electricity the day we buy it? In other words, it's still maybe a 3 years loan or something like that. So is that gonna be possible, or are we gonna have to get town to vote on it?
Oh, no, you're gonna have to get town to vote on.
Okay,
Yeah, there will be no resources that can be implemented directly by the select board. Or certainly, well, they can't be implemented by the town manager, but also can't be implemented directly by the.
okay. So we would have to have a presentation or something
Yes.
that's to town meeting that says,
Yes,
this is the loan, this is how it's getting paid back. The same payments we're making on the loan are savings from the electric bill.
that sort of presentation
Okay, so it's good for
would
us
be
to know that.
required to sway folks to consider it.
Yep.
Now, it may be something that if there's a fund, if there's a resource out there, it says, and part of the money's coming
Coming
from
from,
X, Y, Z.
Which means we're paying even less.
Correct.
To pay the loan
Yeah.
off than we are
That
saving.
sort of a presentation is what's gonna be required to the
Okay.
town.
So you can confirm that then, okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna say that's it for the minutes. Marcia, back to you.
Yeah, okay, great. So I think a big chunk of our meeting is really about community power and in particular the discretionary funds program. So just gonna open up that conversation, and Kim, you wanted to share something?
I sure did.
I mean, did you see that I circulated your text though, like your piece?
Oh, good. So I will just go over it a little bit. And what the idea is, I'm calling this and I'm making it, it's a 1-pager, it's actually a 2-pager. Enfield Community Power Energy Audit Program. That would be kicked off in June of 2024. Now, at the kickoff, all we're doing is bringing it before the select board and seeing if they want to kick it off. The idea is that we use discretionary funds from the Community Power Program to provide the residents of Enfield 50% or completely free energy audits starting in 2025. Okay, so that basically, and if this program works well, we get people who are doing the audits. The follow-up is to help them with the weatherization that the audits point out would help them save money. So the first year, the weatherization we expect will save them money. The audit is just informational, but it's really necessary to figuring out what the best weatherization is. I think I'm stating, and this is for us all to talk about, that the goal is to provide 50 energy audits for residents of Enfield in 2025. The cost to run the program is expected to be, and here again, I've made up a few numbers, $25,000. I'm saying is a part-time job to administer this program. We would hire somebody, whether it's somebody from an existing like Resilient Buildings or Clean Energy New Hampshire, or somebody to run it. Each audit will cost between $400 for the smallest. And I say apartments can work here, and we'll talk about how that would work, because apartments can't have a blower door test, but there might be a lot of other things an audit can show an apartment dweller how they can save some money. And manufacturers' houses would be in the $400 range. $700 is for anything. I guess I'm going to probably change that to $700 for a standalone home. And the question is whether we have to designate the size of like what would be considered a mobile home. But we don't say mobile, we say under 2,500 and over 2,500. We could do something like that. So that's the kind of stuff we got to talk about. Enfield's electrical, and then as I was saying, the $400 would be free. And actually, maybe that's what it is. We're saying that the audits, are free for anything that's the $400. Anything over that, we provide $400, and the rest is up to the homeowner, because it could be even up to $700 or $800. So maybe it's not a 50% and a 0, but we will provide $400 to the audit, and that will be free we'll ensure that the auditors allow that to be free for homes below 2,500 or something. Okay, so to get there, Enfield's load through the community power is 1,100 megawatt hours per month. If we add a discretionary rate of $5 a half a cent, sorry, 0.5 cents or half a cent per kilowatt hour over the Granite Basic that we are allowing most people have today, that would provide $5,500 a month in discretionary funds. The point would be, if we can kick this off, that rate would start in August. The rates are decided at the end of June, so Enfield has to make that decision pretty soon, the end of June. And that would provide, let's see, so starting in January, we could then provide that. Oh, that would provide $16,500 by the end of the year, which is a good time to then kick off the program. Hire somebody. We're not paying them all of their salary at once, but we can hire somebody and start doing audits. The administrator would also be responsible to work with New Hampshire Saves or other grant programs to leverage any funding that we have to augment this program. So it may be the case at that point that New Hampshire Saves has some money and is providing them for audits. So it would be this administrator's job to also figure out how to help get those New Hampshire Saves.
Leverage those.
Yeah, leverage those. So then the energy committees, or I said the energy committee, oops, I said energy committee. The Enfield Energy Committee's responsibility is to kick the program off and monitor it on a regular basis, providing the feedback to the select board as to how it's going. They would also have to hire this administrator. And then the administrator's job is to manage the resident requests, qualify the applicants for 0 cost or 50% cost audit, help choose the energy audits, I would say, auditors, match up homes with auditors, work with the energy committee and town administrators to ensure the funds get paid to the auditors. The start of the program would be January 2025, with reports select board in June and December. If there aren't enough people who want audits and we can't spend the money, then we would decide to stop collecting discretionary funds. Like that would be the first thing that we could decide, that the select board could decide is this doesn't look like it's being kicked off. The energy committee is not doing its job. We don't have an administrator, something, is not working. Then we just stop collecting the discretionary funds. The select board can decide to do that. And if, on the other hand, if we're getting over 50 audit requests a year, we should continue the program for a second year and then start kicking off the weatherization part of the program. The town's responsibility, the town manager and select board are required to set the rate for Enfield's community power. Our community power plan says we want the default rate to be less than the default rate set by Eversource and Liberty. So we are recommending that the select board and the town manager set a rate that is as much as a half a cent higher than Granite Basic, as long as it's still lower than the default rates. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if we can do this last thing, but this is where the select board and, can help us. I would like the program to require that the town set up a fund specifically for community power revenues. And that's where the money would be received, because every quarter, or I don't know how often, Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire would be sending a check to the town of Enfield for this program, and it can't go into the town's unrestricted funds. So that might need some legal review. I don't know if you know much about that, Tracy, but
There are other fund sources
that are restricted.
that do the same sort of
Like
thing.
I'm thinking the Lakeside Park had people-
Recreation is exactly the
Recreation.
same.
So that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking, is it's a fund that's for energy related
Yeah.
projects, specifically community power. Thoughts, questions, changes?
In addition to this plan, which very elaborate, very detailed, thank you.
Getting more detail every time I write it.
There was something else that you may have mentioned that's an eventual source of funds from community power?
Discretionary funds are funds from community power.
All right, and community power program is not, without this, contributing any money
Oh,
back.
so yes, that could happen, the discretionary funds could happen because community power coalition sets rates. And then 6 months later, those rates stay steady. But if we find that the amount of reserves was higher because we overcollected
Right,
by quite a bit, we need to have reserve funds that allow Community Power New Hampshire to continue operations, which is 6 months of reserves.
Sure.
But after that, if the reserves are still building up too fast, they would then be distributed to discretionary funds of all of the towns based on their loads, or how much they use.
Okay,
And, but we don't expect that to happen, because every time we set rates, everybody who's at the table, all the directors and who are making decisions and stuff, they all say, look at the rate difference and say, if we project this amount is going to give us too many discretionary funds, let's have a lower rate. Like, who wouldn't say
Okay,
that, right?
so-
So normally we say, if it looks like we're gonna have discretionary funds, because of our program, let's set the rates lower to benefit people today.
Okay.
So this is why we want, but, so it might happen, it'd be nice, but it also kind of means we weren't on top of things, right? That we let it get out of control and we
I see.
got too much money.
Okay.
So we want the towns to be able to decide themselves if a discretionary fund should be built up and
Uh-huh.
what it would be used for.
And the Board of Selectmen of Enfield have the authority?
Actually, the
this?
town manager does, yes. And that's in the bylaws and the JPA and all the stuff that we've signed along the way.
Right,
But the community power plan that we presented to the public and that everybody agreed to
yes,
says, and it actually is specific, it says at launch, we will absolutely be lower than default of any of these things. But
right,
our plan, like in most everybody community, wants the default to always be lower than
oh, of course,
Eversource and Liberty. So that's why I suggested, even if Enfield town manager and or select board, and again, it's really the town manager, there's only one person who actually makes the decision for for Enfield in terms of the rate. It can't be a joint decision. There has to be one person who makes that decision. That is Ed. And the select board agreed to that at some point in the past.
okay,
But
would be,
but Ed has said, I want the select board to agree to whatever we're gonna do here.
okay.
So it makes sense. But no, the whole town does not have to vote on that.
They do, that was the gist of my question, okay, got that,
On the other hand, if we think, or the select board thinks, the whole town ought to vote on that, then let's talk about it and how to do a public meeting and how to make sure everybody's informed properly and everything else. And even if we decide to go forward without asking for a vote in a public meeting, we can still do informational sessions. We can make sure everybody knows what's happening. We can make sure they know how to opt out if they want, because you can always opt out. And I confirmed that. You can, if we go to a slightly higher rate, there is still Granite Basic there. And an individual can opt back down to Granite Basic.
oh, so they can opt out of the discretionary funds
Yes.
contribution,
Correct.
They can. And then it would be our decision as to whether they can opt into weatherization and programs. But I've been cautioned, it would be best to let anyone in the town of Enfield benefit from discretionary funds. Because think of who's gonna opt out. You know, the person
Yeah.
who's gonna opt out is probably because they don't really feel like they can afford it, and fine, we want them to opt out and we want them to get a free audit. Probably.
got it.
Yeah.
And you would like to present this to the select board,
June 3rd.
Oh, June 3rd?
Wow.
That's Monday.
I know. Well, that's why I wanted it to be after this. If we're not ready, that's okay. But the problem is
Sorry.
June 27th, I think, is when Ed has to make his decision for the town of Enfield. And so, yes, we could do it on the 17th. I think well, first of all, Elisa said there's 2 meetings scheduled for June, but they'd like to cancel one.
Okay,
if
you
they
want to make
could.
sure you get in.
You think?
the last conversation was with vacations and everything else,
Yeah.
no one is sure. In
Right.
fact,
That's
it's
why
on the
I gotta go
agenda
on the first one.
for next Monday night
Okay,
to talk about when are vacations among the 5 board members
right.
and who's gonna be here, who's not gonna be here.
So there
For
may not
example,
be a meeting.
I know of at least one person who's not going to be here for the second June meeting, and that's me.
So
so-
we want to go for the first one, because it's likely to not be canceled.
Yeah, and then,
Because if there's discussion.
and it may be, it may happen at the second June meeting may happen, and the one that gets canceled is the July meeting. Historically, it's been the one around July 4th that gets canceled.
Yeah, and that makes sense, but at the same time, we would have more time if the select board says, we really want a public meeting on this before we decide.
That's where I'm.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to interpolate anything that anyone on the board might say, but to be honest, I think that is likely.
And that's great, which gives us more time if we talk about it.
But you say this is June 27th.
It is, but at the same time, and the select board might agree to something like, we can start this and then change it. Actually, how often can we change it? No,
Every
we can't.
6 months.
Maybe only 6 months. We could do it for 6 months, and if people decided it was a bad idea, we could stop doing it. But
Can
maybe they
you-
wouldn't want to start.
Can you simply, without funding it necessarily?
Yeah.
Can you simply open the door, start the program as a potential receiver of the funds, and then later come back with the specific math that calculates how much it changes the rate? So that, if you will, the discretionary funds program exists and only to be decided
Well, one way.
by
to
how
do it-
much.
Right, so yes and no. The rate has to be decided on June 27th. Again, I'm not sure the date, 25th,
Okay.
6th, or
And
7th.
just
I
to
see.
be clear, that rate is for the discretionary fund in particular.
No, it's
No,
not
the
all
rate
for
for the
the
whole-
entire rate for
Yeah.
everybody.
It's, all the rates have to be decided on whatever I said, June 27th.
27th.
And so one thing we could do is make it a 1/10 of a cent higher. Like, in other words, sort of split the difference. We want to start the program. So by saying by putting a stake in the ground and saying, yes, we're starting to collect a little bit of extra money from the Enfield
Yeah.
residents so that we could kick off a program. It won't be ready to start audits in January of 2025 necessarily.
Right.
But it would give us, it would start the momentum. We'd have an opportunity to, even during that time, have public meetings, send out listserv notices, tell people how they can opt out. But try to, sell the program, like, this is why we're doing it. And so most people probably wouldn't opt out, but saying that we've started the Enfield discretionary fund. So that might be, a 1/2 cent is a good amount to really kick off a program. But if we're not comfortable with that for any reason, whether we think there'll be a backlash or whether we think we can wait 6 months too. We don't have to start it. One of the benefits of starting it now, and honestly, is that Enfield has been a leader in community power. And this is our first opportunity. I think there's only going to be a few towns that are ready, because we've done more work. than
Has any
almost
other-
anyone else. Yeah.
Any other town done this?
No, Lebanon's close. They may be ready. And some towns may just decide to do it without a plan. They may just decide to start collecting discretionary funds. So I don't know how many people are going to take advantage of it. Friday at noon is, I don't know, did you see the email? I asked Elisa if she should pass it on or if I should pass it on to the select board. Friday at noon is an open meeting to anyone who wants to learn about discretionary funds. Brian Kalman, the CEO of CPCNH, is going to do like a seminar. Like a seminar or whatever,
I
talk
see.
about these discretionary funds. How people are gonna use it, and they're actually gonna ask, they may ask me to outline this kind of a program, so people get an idea of what they might use them for. Use the funds.
I don't think I saw anything that,
Darn,
So
I'm gonna
that-
just send that directly to
I think you sent it out on Friday to Ed saying,
Ed and Elisa saying, should you send that out? Can I send this out?
but there was no,
No response. Yeah.
rather, I don't know if there was any response.
Yeah, it is Friday, so it's not giving people much time. I think I'll just send it to,
Send it.
I can send it to the select board.
you can send anything you want to the select board. You pay taxes.
Thought, damn it.
Yeah, and will you send it to us as well?
Yes, oh, I think.
Or did you send it
I-
right?
I have it.
You already have it. I might have been behind on my emails,
Okay.
so.
But yes, I would suggest that you send it and invite them. If even one person,
Yeah, come.
So,
That
that would be helpful.
some of our select board have come to some CPCNH
I know.
meetings. And so, this would be a good one, a really good one for the select board or Ed to go to,
I agree, I know.
so that they hear.
My reaction as a member of that board is that if possible, make your presentation at the next meeting if Melissa
Select board
can,
meeting,
if Melissa can get it
Yeah.
on the schedule for you.
Okay,
And if not, regardless of whether I'm there, make it at the next one. But to
Yeah.
prepare your presentation and get the reaction of the select board and what their thoughts are.
Yeah.
Do you think, I guess I was thinking that if you do the presentation next week, if they have questions or whatever, then the second meeting in the month
that
Might
would be a
be
good
a-
way to do it, certainly.
might
If
be a
you,
way to go
if you
back.
can get your presentation to a, succinct,
Right.
one pager, not that.
I don't wanna suggest the time limit because that isn't always good,
I
but
know.
succinct presentation,
Mhm.
and get people thinking, and then I agree. This is something that can then be up on the second meeting as well, in terms of a
Follow-up,
follow-up.
yeah.
I mean, you did when we went, I say we went to the meeting and you presented. I think that was in March.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And it was, I think it was, and it was, the concept was introduced.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's one thing to have a concept, it's another now to say, this is a
It's real.
concrete possibility. And we're talking dollars here, we're talking about
I
actual
now,
things.
what, I know for me, on my average bill,
Yep.
as an individual, probably talking about $2 a month,
Yes, so let's see.
you know, but I don't know what the average bill is for.
Yeah,
Well, they say the average is 650.
yep, that's what I'm
Okay.
just gonna do, so 650 kilowatt hours times 0.005, half a cent, is $3.25.
Okay, so I'm probably a little more than $2.
Yeah.
I would have that statistic in mind in
Good.
your presentation. I think it's important for the select board
Yeah.
to know
hear.
just that.
Yeah.
And it may be worth considering doing less.
Yep. Yep.
For the
To
first
kick it off,
6-month period,
Mhm.
and maybe we're not actually, and we might.
less, you know,
enough to
open
kick
the
it
door,
off.
less impact, et cetera.
Yeah.
Um,
And also it will depend, and this is where we want to give, I think we want to give Ed some leeway to play with this a little bit. He won't know, we won't know what the Liberty and Eversource rates are until days before we have to set ours, like just a few days. And so, but
so
that's
he
not-
really, and that goes to him, I assume?
Yeah, he's invited.
So he
he's
doesn't
already
even
been
have an
invited.
opportunity to come back to the select board and tell them.
No, that's
No.
why I think the motion at the select board meeting, and I'm trying to, I'll craft something, but it's gonna be something like Ed has the discretion to go up to a half a cent if the default rate is another half a cent greater than that. Something, something that is significant.
What's a good,
What's a good
see, I'm
motion?
thinking not half a cent. I'm thinking something less than half a cent
Yeah,
for the first, because you can review it again in 6 months. For the first 6 months.
35.35.
three, yeah.
Or just, or even,
Or
just- or
0.3.
even just in half, 0.25,
0.25.
just, you know,
Mhm.
lower impact, more
Which,
likely to get the door open.
which would lower though, of course, our ambition.
It would, admittedly, it would, but it gets
Would
the
slow
door
it down.
open.
Yeah. Push it up.
For the time being, I don't recommend that we discuss as a part of the program necessarily that there may be a town employee involved.
A town, okay, just that it's a select board question.
It's a select board question. The niceties of the program, I don't think we should discuss.
Mhm.
Because after all, it may all be a subcontract anyway. The whole thing could be subcontracted. There's
Yeah.
no defined need that says you have to have
Oh,
a
you
town
mean the
employee.
section that says what the
Right.
town's responsible for?
Right.
Okay, so, but I think that only says, let me just look at it, required to set the rate. Okay, so the select board is required, I'll say the select board.
Well, the fourth paragraph down, the cost to run the program is expected to be 25,000
Oh, yeah,
per
I
year,
was-
a part-time job.
Right.
In fact, to
Oh.
run the program itself could be subcontracted out.
That's what, I definitely want that to come through, because that is what I was
And
expecting.
therefore, and
Cost of the program is
because
expected to be subcontracted.
I
out.
don't think that,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
we had a lot of serious discussion prior to this last annual meeting. And a lot of folks were concerned,
I know.
about staffing.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah,
recommendation is
okay, that's
that,
good. I like that.
Right.
I don't want the tail to wag the dog.
No, I didn't, I was not, I didn't have that in mind at all. I was always thinking it would be subcontracted out, so.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was reading the latest Energy Times. There's a company there's a couple of local companies that do the audits.
Yes, there are. We would definitely want a
Right.
local company.
And therefore, administration of it would be them anyway.
Well, sort of, maybe. Sometimes you don't want the administrator to be the one doing the audits, just like you might not want.
No, but we do have a town employee who is currently involved in social contact
Hmm.
with folks who may have difficulty, and so
Hmm,
it could
right.
roll into that
True.
Yeah.
position. In other words, so that there is a discretion involved.
Yeah,
And then
that
it
would be
passes.
like a
Yeah.
component of it,
Yep.
of her job.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
and then, so there's your discretionary analysis
Yeah,
and evaluation. Yes, you're qualified. No, you're not, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. You know, I'm in the weeds there, I know, and I don't
No,
mean to be.
but those are the weedy questions that'll come up.
yeah, it's good to see.
That's what I'm trying to anticipate, to be
Right.
honest.
I hear ya.
Yeah, that's cool.
Huh,
Well,
Some of what I just said should not be in the notes.
I know, but
didn't
it's recorded.
it's-
Oh, yeah, well, okay.
get-
Sorry, I shouldn't have said that either. That's okay.
I don't think,
I'm simply looking at the program and wanting to make sure that we're not overcommitting the town or its resources and simply giving it an opportunity to be
I like it. Kicked off.
something which can be of advantage to folks.
mhm.
That's what we want. And actually, that's how I would probably start this, discussion with the select board. One of the reasons I was so involved and interested in community power was for this, so that we can actually target programs for, people who can't afford solar on their roof. People who don't have the means to do something big, like a big energy.
It isn't even limited to that necessarily. It's a resource that anyone
Anyone, that's the key.
can take
Anyone.
advantage of. And
Exactly.
if there's a cost beyond the baseline, then they'll pay that part.
Okay.
Are there other comments about this? Joanne, do you have some more specific comments? I have a couple others that I can also share. Well, I know, I have to make my comments here because I cannot share via email.
So what in blah, 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 under the Energy Committee's responsibility, the second paragraph. Says something, if there are enough people who want the audits. Okay, never mind. I misread it the first
Yeah,
time.
I didn't write that well. If there aren't enough people who want edits and we aren't spending the money.
That's fine. As I said, I misread it. Yeah, I think that your feedback was
Mhm.
valuable.
Mhm.
And it does get kind of, I'm gonna raise this question anyway. And that was, you raised a question about discretionary funds, because that was something that we had talked about when we started community power in general,
Mhm.
that there would be funds available for the community. So is this the only way?
Mm.
And I thought that it was a way, but it wasn't the only way.
It is definitely a way, and a way that can start as soon as
As soon
this
as,
June or July, whatever, and could be adopted later. You know, it doesn't have to start now. The only other way I'm aware of is if our reserves have gotten too high. I shouldn't say our, the CPCNH's reserves are too high and they need to give back to the communities because our bylaws don't allow for profits like a for-profit company. Our reserves are there, you know, for the 6 months to make sure that the business can continue providing energy. But if the reserves get too high, then yes, discretionary funds would go back to the towns. If we wait for that, first of all, we don't expect to get to the 6 months of reserves for 5 years.
Right.
That's number
So-
one.
So
So-
that's,
And then secondly, now that I've been in 2-3 rate setting sessions and heard the discussions from all the communities at the table, every community pushes for lower rates first. So if it looks like, so we're never gonna plan for those discretionary funds. We're gonna plan for lower rates. If they happen, everybody will get something, you know, would get some discretion, something into their discretionary fund. It's also a good reason, I think Tracy, as you pointed out, for having a discretionary fund set up for Enfield already. So if that ever does happen, we have a place to receive that money.
Pot to
In
put the
town and-
funds into,
Yeah, we have our program set up. But again, I think that's no sooner than 5 years from now, and then maybe almost hopefully never. And
it's just that I know that we had made that,
it's in the bylaws to do it that way, yeah.
yeah, but we had presented it as an option.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to be clear because that's a question that will come up.
And it is an important one, and I think everybody who's on the board thought that reserve funds just keep increasing and increasing and increasing. And now that we've had rate settings, it's clear nobody would let that happen. It's not a good idea. It's like,
Right.
we're not a for-profit company. That's not why we're here. We want lower rates.
And every time we have, excuse me, we add more communities coming on,
Mhm.
we have to purchase the power for them. So then our reserves go down because we purchased.
They do
More.
temporarily, and then
I
they
know,
go up. Yeah,
I know.
yeah, they do.
But
They
it's
kind of have this,
It's this funny dip.
yeah, it's a little dip.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, on my end, then, I had a question regarding whether we are creating a little bit of a competition of goals, if you will, in the sense that for residents who are in community power, will they have less of an incentive to opt up if we are already kind of increasing a little minimally the rate? So, which for me is not a big deal because I would rather have people invest in our discretionary fund because it's directly affecting energy consumption, etc. While the other one are opting up at the moment, if I said correctly, still through RECs or cheap. So if we really want to have an impact on climate, investing at this local level for discretionary funds is really a good strategy. So I'm just wondering if you have an answer around that.
Almost. I'm not gonna have to look it up because the way I asked the question was, if you've opted up, do you also pay the extra discretionary? In which case you wouldn't be making that choice. As to whether you want cleaner energy or you want Enfield energy, you know, want to help Enfield. So let me see what the answer was, because
Yeah.
now I've forgotten.
Is that
Yeah,
like-
I don't think the answer is clear yet. I think that's probably why, but let me see what these guys said.
Yeah, I've got that memo here too.
Does it say something about if you've opted up, what happens next? Was that in my regular email? Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place.
This was the,
Is
yeah,
it Scott May or
correct,
Mark?
Mark,
Okay, so.
on the 22nd. I can't locate because it's dense.
Okay, yeah, I'll find it here. Okay, Mark, hoping to create a program. I gave him the whole summary of the program. Okay, Mark said, I presume we've looked into partnering with New Hampshire Saves, and so we're talking about that too. The town said, he was concerned that the program requiring the town to set up restricted funds might, and to be used only for energy related programs might be, we might be too restrictive, so we'll have to talk about what we want that, the wording to say, or what can be done. Wait, then he said something else, Henry. Office hours for discretionary funds, yes, wait, some more, John Chafee, no, okay, where is it?
It's,
I mean, we could come back to this question if it requires more research, you know?
I printed it
Okay.
out, it's on my printer.
the, what it says this separate local product, that would be the one with the adder, will be offered in addition to the members' other standard product offerings.
Right,
such
but, oh,
as-
you're right, but it is just one offering, so there'll be Granite Basic, there'll be Enfield Community Power, there'll be Granite Plus, then there'll be 50 and 100, so yeah, I think that was the answer, that this, you're not gonna add extras to the.
Yeah, it says
Clean
none of which would include a discretionary
you.
reserve
You
price
answered that.
adder.
You answered that, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, that was helpful.
So yes, there is competition between that. I'm doing
Right.
that right now. I've got Clean 100 and I have to decide, is it better to put less money in, pay less, but paying into community, to Enfield?
Right, because the local one would have the same renewable content as the Granite Basic.
Yeah,
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 Yeah, so that's the,
yeah. Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so that was one question. The other and last for me is really kind of reviewing, but this can be done at a later stage, reviewing what the tasks will be for the committee, the energy committee. So I understand, there will be a hire, but like how involved would we be as a committee with the hire, like the implications for us,
Mhm.
because as we think about, people who we need help with,
Mhm.
stuff. Yeah, that.
yeah, that's a good chair
Kind of
question.
question. I took, I noted down, I was like, okay, tasks, monitor the program, make the program known. What else? Like.
Yeah, so, so I think either the Energy Committee or the Community Power Committee, which is almost the Energy Committee anyway, would have to find the resource, hire the subcontract, whatever, to run the program. And, that person, if they're good and prepared, will do all of the day-to-day
Right,
work.
exactly.
And I think that they would have to report back to this group and or directly to the select board. We'll have to decide the reporting structure, but somebody should be overseeing that work on at least a monthly basis. That's the way I would say it. So
Yeah.
and I think that's the Energy Committee or the Community Power Committee, but somebody. And how much effort is that? I don't really know if somebody's had good experience with that.
Right,
Yeah. And I mean, we don't have to figure this out. This is part of starting now.
correct.
If we are crafting the program
Right.
before we can actually fund it.
Right.
So it will be part of that work. So not too concerned. I mean, I think we have enough to go to the select board with what we have.
And actually, so with that in mind, I guess, is there a motion we should have that says, I move that the Energy Committee endorse the start of a discretionary funds program through Community Power? And we'll leave it at that, not at any particular rate, or anything else, but we're just endorsing that they consider starting this program. Is that a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, let me write it down. The Energy, so how are you gonna say it? The Energy Committee endorses, is that the right word? Recommends?
Endorses, I don't know.
Maybe recommends is stronger.
Recommends.
I like
Recommend.
recommend. 'Cause otherwise,
Recommend.
performance is true.
That the select board
Consider.
consider, yeah, okay, consider.
Yeah, yeah,
Starting the discretionary or consider a discretionary, how do you?
Consider starting a discretionary funds program
Okay,
funded by a small supplement to the rate.
correct.
the default, current default rate, because it will have its own name.
Yeah, and then,
Great.
you know, see what the reaction is.
Okay, I will second that. So Kim seconded, even though.
Would you
You
read
can
it back?
second it. Tracy,
I-
you
I'll
want
second
second?
it.
Yeah, you had a lot to say about it.
Do you want to read it back? please?
Yes, okay. I will do that. Okay. Joellen moves that the Energy Committee recommends that the Select Board consider starting a discretionary funds program funded by a small supplement to the current default rate for community power.
Great.
Yeah,
Tracy
that works.
Yeah,
seconded.
that's fine.
Okay, so all in favor? Do we have to vote on the recommendation?
Sure.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Fine.
It's unanimous.
So
Yay.
now if we go to the Select Board, we can say, the Energy Committee recommended
Yeah.
that.
Yes,
I think that's fair.
Start with that.
Right.
good job.
Yes,
Awesome.
okay.
Thank you.
Got a motion.
Yeah, that's,
I hope we can
Big
do it.
doings.
I mean, we've been a leader and community power is a great thing and I hope we can do this, you know, somehow. And if not this time, that's okay. I'll just go away and mope.
not for too long, I hope.
Well, yeah, I'll be curious to hear the reaction.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so that means that, next month we can have an update on that because,
Yes.
yeah, awesome. So that'll be definitely on the agenda. I'm curious about the name of how this, discretionary fund,
Yeah, what we're gonna call
could
it.
get, I mean, did you have a name at the beginning of, your presentation?
Community Power Discretionary Funds Program.
But not for the rate. I didn't put in
Okay.
a name for the rate. I don't know that the name will go any further
Okay.
than what, you know, Enfield. Like, I don't know that you won't see it on your bill, you know, or something like that. But it could be called the Enfield rate, or it could be something more interesting than that, Enfield Plus rate, or the Enfield,
Still,
whatever. It'll have the word Enfield in it, because other towns might want to
It
do
would
it.
have to have the word Enfield in it, but
That's
that can
about
be
all.
left to the discretion of the folks with community power.
Yeah, maybe they wanna
You know,
Give
they're the
everybody-
ones that have to both
administer it.
administer it. They're the ones that have to write a check.
Yeah, you're looking at the treasurer. I have to follow every detail of every dollar that's gonna go to every
Right.
town separately from all the rest of the
So
dollars.
in theory, Liberty Utilities would write a check to Community Power, who would then write a check
Yeah.
to the town of Enfield.
Yes, so Liberty always writes checks to community power, while the money flows through electronically.
Right.
And then, but this is the second part, is
Yeah.
that community power would be writing checks to individual towns for
Yes.
these discretionary funds.
Right.
On a regular basis.
On a regular basis, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. okay. All right, so I definitely recognize that we are at 7:23.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
it's
gonna
important,
enter tonight.
we haven't met the previous month, so, and this, we were expecting this was going to be a bit of a longer meeting. But I have a question here. Do we want to try to cover a couple more items? Or how do you feel about staying an extra 5 minutes?
It
Or
won't be
get
fun.
to 7:30?
It won't be
It,
fun.
it'll be fine. Bleh. I have to say something about the master plan
Yes.
because it's timely.
Yeah.
So I'll give myself 2.5 minutes. The community forums were held on Thursday and Saturday, and none of you showed up.
I tried, but the doors were locked
Yeah.
Well, we don't go, well, I don't want to hear that anymore.
because it was posted that. it was
I
open to
know,
you.
it was an incorrect posting.
Yeah, and how did I know?
Of course you wouldn't know that,
Sorry.
but there's online,
Yes,
the survey online is the same as what you would have received if you had been there in person. And I just want to encourage people to go online and do it. And again, it's those 5 topic areas and they're really seeking input. So please follow up with that. And we'll be having a meeting in a couple of weeks, somewhere, I forget, June.
And so, Joellen, are we providing that input as individuals, I assume?
Individual.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, that'll be open until June 12th. And then that survey data will be collected and it'll be brought to the task force later in the month. I think it's the 25th. And then we'll review it and things will be progressing. So thank you, but we want input.
Yeah.
Can I make another motion?
Yes.
In regards to that, because I agree we should all have our individual input, but I also think, and I've been on my list, I would move that the Energy Committee recommend for the master plan that Enfield should be a 100% renewable energy, be powered by 100% renewable energy by 2050.
Thank
There's
you.
my motion.
Write it down.
Oh,
Sorry.
and I have to do that too?
Well,
Kimberly,
yes.
that the Energy Committee, if we all agree, of course, that the Energy Committee recommends master plan state. Is that how I can say it? The master plan state that Enfield Enfield is 100, how do we say it? 100% is powered by,
He said it should be powered by renewable energy by 2050.
100% powered by
100%, yeah.
renewable energy by 2050. Renewable energy by, we can craft this a little bit, but we don't have time.
It's just, I mean, you can say that, but you have to have the commitment of the people.
I'm just suggesting, I'm just
Okay.
moving that the Energy Committee recommends the master plan state that Enfield be powered by 100% renewable energy by 2050. That's my motion. We can,
Okay.
table it even if we don't want to talk
I
about it.
second it.
Oh, thank you. But now we can talk about it.
We can talk about it, yeah. Well, so I think coming out of the town meeting, we had a little bit of a test of, how ready the community is for certain shifts and goals. And we came out, I think, of that meeting with this feelings like, oh, having like a ready for 100 global kind of goal felt a little bit daunting. At the same time, I think we came out of that meeting with the idea of maybe we can just set goals wherever we can. So for me, the question is the master plan one such goals where we don't need to necessarily have everybody behind, but it informs how decision makers and we operate. And so we find all of those places where we can set goals that we can move towards.
Yep.
I think that's logical. The master plan is a guideline. It's not
Here we go.
a regulation. And having the Energy Committee make a recommendation
Mm.
that's a part of the master plan is appropriate.
Yeah.
It's there, it's written, it's fine.
Yay.
It's a guideline. It's not that, as some other towns have probably made it a significant milestone, perhaps.
Right.
We're not yet suggesting that. We're just asking it to be a part and parcel of the master plan consideration, which after all, in the end, the master plan is something that developers and others look at as simply a guideline. Wouldn't it be nice if we can, because others have thought about it, and let's think about trying to move in that direction sort of thing. That's what the master plan is, really. Now, I assume that there'll be a section that we can write for the master plan that can become a part of it.
I think we have to, if we're gonna stick.
I think we should ask, you know, the folks involved if we can write a section.
It's being written by the consultants, but we have input.
Great.
We have been, so the section on
Energy,
energy is being written by the consultants
From
our input.
all the input,
Okay.
from all the input.
correct?
Not to
Okay, so
mention-
they're not just putting their own ideas in there necessarily.
They come here to our meeting, one of the.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct.
And so this is something we will tell them if we agree to this motion.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
As well
Yeah.
as other
Okay.
things.
yeah,
that's good.
I agree to this motion
wanna
and let's,
Vote on that
let's
motion.
move it. Yeah,
Okay, so
call,
then,
call a vote.
right, okay, so we're gonna vote on the motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay,
Motion approved. Okay.
and I want it written, if you could send, I mean, to me, so I can,
You want a copy of these minutes that are,
thank you, yes. And I would
Correct.
suggest strongly that each individual of this committee put that in their
that's what I was gonna do.
survey when you go online. and
Yeah,
fill
okay.
this. And you can probably do it more than once.
What do you
I
mean,
was
what
wondering if
words?
you could do the survey more than once.
I don't know.
I mean, I've done it once.
Do it again.
I did
Next
it.
time you can add the 100% renewable by.
I was just, you know, I don't know, you,
Because I
Back
did the
on.
paper ones, but I'm gonna go online.
All right.
yeah,
Okay, so and be ambitious and be.
Yeah.
You know, with the goals, yeah.
Go
Mhm.
for the gold. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I move to close.
I just have one last question.
yes,
What, I would love to know how to access our membership for Clean Energy New Hampshire, because we are members, but you know, like, I would like to attend their meetings and I don't have the credentials, the login. And do we
Right.
have that? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do know what you're talking about. I have no idea if there's credentials and how you get them. So
I
is there
don't-
a login button at CENH?
So essentially, the weekly legislative updates that you do on Friday, I try to join those. And I can't because I don't have, you know, the login information.
okay.
So it's a question. I can also ask directly them.
Yeah, you can, if you don't mind trying to ask Sam Evans Brown. you
I
can
would do
send him an email
that so
and
that you
say,
don't have to worry.
yeah, thank you. That would be great.
Okay,
Yeah,
Perfect.
actually, Chris, SKOLUND,
Scotland.
right, he's the legislative person.
Oh, no, actually, he's the energy person. The next person.
You're
in
right.
line is yeah,
Yeah.
I would just ask Sam Evans Brown.
Because I think my name is on it, but it should be,
Yours, or maybe they can put a number of names like the energy.
right,
committee.
because we just paid the membership. And we should be updating who the members are, and all the members should have access to that information.
okay.
So let me follow
Now
up with
I'm
that.
moving- Now I'm moving
Okay.
again to
Okay.
close the meeting.
Okay.
That's the word
I second it.
Adjourn.
Get your.
Thank you. I
In
did send
favor.
those minutes to.
Aye.
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 Officially.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I have to run this quickly, but it's not actually this quickly. Thank you, Marta. Thanks for
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Kim.
Stop the recording.
I'm trying to stop the recording.
Yes,
That's the-
I end up leaving on, I've started things and then I